I wasn't invited to my sister's wedding. I found out while standing at a family barbecue, holding a paper plate of macaroni salad that was starting to sweat in the June heat. My cousin Brooke wandered over from the grill, flipping her hair back with one hand, a hot dog in the other, and asked me the question that would crack my world open. "So, are you flying out for Lily's big day or just driving?" I blinked at her, confused. "What big day?" She laughed like I was joking. "The wedding, silly. She's finally marrying Derek." I smiled like I understood perfectly, then excused myself to sit in my car with the air conditioning on full blast, trying to remember how to breathe. Lily was my baby sister. I raised her after Dad died when I was just 17 and she was 9. I held her through her first panic attack in college, wired her rent money more times than I could count, stayed on the phone until 3 in the morning when she thought Derek was cheating. I was the one who mailed her a weighted blanket when anxiety kept her awake, the one who talked her through every breakdown, every doubt, every fear. And now she was getting married, with flowers and a venue and a guest list that somehow didn't include me. They'd planned an entire wedding and I was the only one who looked surprised I wasn't there. I sat in that car for 20 minutes, watching condensation drip down the windows, trying to sort through what I was feeling. Hurt, anger, confusion, all of it tangled together like Christmas lights you can't untangle. Through the windshield, I could see my mother in her pale blue summer dress, laughing with Brooke, looking perfectly at ease, like the world was exactly as it should be. I waited 2 days before calling her. Not because I needed time to calm down. I wasn't even angry, really. Just hollow. I needed to hear her say it out loud, needed to know if she'd admit they'd planned all of this without telling me. She answered on the second ring. "Hi, honey," she said in that efficient voice she used with everyone, warm but distant. I could picture her in the kitchen, wiping down counters, phone tucked between her shoulder and cheek. "Is Lily getting married?" I asked, keeping my voice steady. There was a pause, the sound of a refrigerator door closing. "Well, yes, next month actually," she said like I'd asked about the weather. "We didn't know if you'd be free." "I didn't know it was happening," I said. She gave a light laugh, the kind that dismisses everything. "Oh, Morgan, don't be dramatic." That word felt like a slap. It was the same tone she'd used when I cried at Dad's funeral and she told me to pull myself together, the same one she'd used when I called her sobbing after losing my job 5 years ago. "Don't catastrophize, sweetheart. You'll land on your feet." I let silence fill the space between us. "You know," she continued, "Lily really wanted something small, just family." "I am family," I said quietly. She sighed. "Yes, but you're always traveling and these things get complicated. Derek's parents had a lot of input and there were limited spots, you understand?" I didn't understand, but I knew better than to say it. "You're not mad, are you?" she asked, her voice softer now. "I'm not sure what I am," I told her. Another silence, heavier this one. "We thought it would be easier this way, less pressure on everyone." Easier. That was the word that stayed with me after we hung up. It wasn't that they'd forgotten me, it's that I was the easy one to erase. I stared at my phone for a long time after that call ended, then I opened my calendar and scrolled to the wedding date. Nothing scheduled, no RSVP, no seat saved, just empty white space where I should have been. I thought about the night Dad died, how I was 17 and Lily was 9, how she crawled into my bed and sobbed into my shoulder until she fell asleep. I remembered being 22 and wiring her $300 for rent because she'd spent her paycheck on textbooks. I remembered the phone call at 2 in the morning when she thought Derek was cheating, how I stayed awake with her until the sun came up, talking her through it. I'd sent her that weighted blanket during her first semester of grad school when panic attacks kept her up at night, included a note that said, "I'm always here." But I wasn't there now, not because I was busy or traveling or unavailable, because they hadn't asked me to be. I didn't post anything angry online. I didn't call Lily to demand explanations or draft long messages no one would answer. Instead, I opened my laptop and bought a ticket to Iceland. One way. Departure date, 3 days before the wedding. I didn't tell anyone, not my coworkers, not my neighbor who usually grabbed my mail, not even Ashley who knew me better than anyone and had stood beside me through 2 breakups and a career crisis. I just stopped responding to messages. That Friday, I submitted a vacation request, packed a single suitcase, and left one sticky note on my fridge that said, "Gone, don't wait up." The flight from Boston to Reykjavik was silent. I didn't watch movies or read, just stared at the flight map on the tiny screen, watching the white line arc over Greenland like a scar across the world. By sunrise, I was standing in a rental cabin carved into a hillside of volcanic rock, half covered in moss and complete silence. The lake outside looked frozen, even though it wasn't. The windows fogged over every morning, and the shower smelled faintly of sulfur. I loved it immediately. For 24 hours, I didn't touch my phone. The silence wasn't lonely, it was clean. No one needed anything from me here. No one expected me to show up or help or fix things. I was just a person in a cabin by a lake, drinking coffee and watching fog roll across the water. On the second day, I walked down to the lagoon. There was a wooden bench half buried in snow, and I sat there until I couldn't feel my hands anymore. The cold felt good, sharp and real. I took a photo with my phone, nothing fancy, just me in a wool coat sitting by still water under a white sky. I wasn't smiling. I posted it to my Instagram story with no caption, no explanation, just the image. Within 10 minutes, the view list lit up. Lily, Brooke, my mother. No one sent a message. No one asked where I was or if I was okay. They just looked. And that was exactly what I wanted. Not their concern, just their awareness. I wanted them to see me somewhere they weren't, living a life that didn't revolve around their needs. I posted nothing the next day. I just lived. I drank bitter coffee from a ceramic mug, watched the fog roll in, wrote in my journal. Not poetry, just lists of things I didn't have to do here. No small talk, no pretending I was fine, no gift registry, no RSVP, just me and the sound of ice shifting in the wind. I figured out when the wedding was the same way you learn most family secrets, through social media breadcrumbs. My cousin Trish posted a boomerang of champagne flutes with a caption that said "Love is in the air," and someone else tagged a boutique hotel 2 hours outside Albany. That was enough. Saturday morning in Iceland was silver and quiet. I sat by the window with a blanket over my legs and watched pale light creep slowly across the lake. There were no church bells here, no wedding playlists, no bridesmaids laughing behind closed doors, just snow and steam and stillness. I made oatmeal. I didn't check my phone. By late afternoon, the wedding had probably started. Maybe Lily was walking down an aisle in something white and sleeveless, our mother crying on cue. I imagined soft lighting, pastel flowers, filtered joy. And somewhere in the rows of seats, there would be a space where I should have been. Not obviously empty. They'd have rearranged things or filled the seat. But I knew where I was supposed to be, and I wasn't there. That evening, I posted a new photo. Just my hand holding a ceramic cup against the backdrop of the frozen lake. The sky was pale lavender, my nail polish chipped slightly on one finger. Nothing glamorous, nothing staged, no caption. Again, the view list rolled in within minutes. Lily, my mother. 2 of her friends I hadn't spoken to in years. Still no one messaged. Still nothing was said. But this time I could feel it. The quiet had shifted. It was no longer absence, it was presence deliberately withheld. I imagined them scrolling through their phones between dances or dessert, seeing my post in a moment of pause and wondering what it meant. It meant I knew. It meant I was watching, not out of jealousy or spite, but because I had once mattered here and now, I didn't. Not enough to be invited, but enough to haunt the edges of their celebration. I didn't post again for 2 days. I let them sit with the silence, let them fill it with whatever story they needed to tell themselves. I had nothing more to add. I spent those days walking along frozen shores, sitting in cafes that smelled like cardamom, reading the same book without retaining a single word. The quiet wasn't punishment, it was protection. For the first time in years, no one could ask me to be strong, to be helpful, to show up and hold things together. I was just Morgan, sitting by a lake in Iceland, finally learning what it felt like to be still. 3 days after the wedding, I woke to the sound of my phone buzzing on the nightstand. It was barely 6 in the morning, and outside, the sky was pale gray, the kind of color that makes you forget the sun exists. The phone kept buzzing, messages and missed calls piling up. At first, I thought someone had died, but the names on the screen told a different story. My aunt, Brooke, my mother, then Lily's college roommate, and finally Ashley, the only person who ever told me the truth. Her message was short. You need to see this. She'd attached a link to a TikTok video with no context, just a thumbnail of what looked like a reception hall and something blurry flying through the air. I hesitated, not sure I wanted to know, but I clicked it anyway. The video started mid-chaos. Shouting, gasps, movement everywhere. A woman was screaming, not in joy but in fury, her voice cracking as she threw a bouquet across the room. People were standing, turning, backing away from something. Someone knocked over a centerpiece and glass shattered off screen. Then the camera found Lily. She was crying, not delicate tears but full body sobs, mascara running down her face. She was yelling something I couldn't make out through the distorted audio. Then another voice came through clearer, sharper. You were my best friend Lily, my maid of honor, and you were sleeping with him the whole time. The voice belonged to Vanessa, her best friend since freshman year, the girl who'd helped plan the bachelorette trip, the same girl who apparently had been planning to marry Derek herself. My stomach dropped. Another guest's voice, half laughing in disbelief, said, "That's the maid of honor." The camera panned just enough to catch Derek frozen between them, hands raised like he was trying to calm wild animals. He said something no one could hear. It didn't matter. The crowd had already started moving, guests whispering and grabbing coats and purses. One woman walked out still holding her napkin. The video ended with Lily sinking to the floor in her wedding dress. I watched it twice, then turned my phone over and stared at the wooden beams of my cabin ceiling. Outside, a bird made a sound I couldn't name. The buzzing started again. Voicemails, missed calls, new texts piling on top of old ones. "Please call me. Your sister's a mess. We need you home. Morgan, please." By noon, I had a voicemail from my mother, her voice wobbling like a bad radio signal. "Lily's not eating," she said. "The family's embarrassed. People are talking." She didn't mention me being right. She didn't apologize. She didn't ask how I was. She just said, "We don't know what to do without you." I sat at the window with my bare feet pressed against the cold floor, watching the lake ripple under wind. My phone buzzed again. This time it was Vanessa. Not a call, just a message. "I'm sorry you weren't there. You probably would have stopped me. She was wrong. I wouldn't have stopped her. I would have let the truth find its way in, just like I did." By early afternoon, my phone had stopped ringing and started pleading. The voicemails were no longer brisk or annoyed. They were softer now, afraid. My mother left 6 in under 3 hours, each one a little more desperate than the last. "Morgan," she whispered in the third one, her voice cracking in places it never used to. "Your sister is devastated. She hasn't left her room since Saturday. We don't know what to say to her. We need you home. You've always been the strong one who holds everyone together." That line again, the strong one. The one who knew how to carry things but was never allowed to be carried. They didn't miss me. They missed what I did for them. And now that everything was falling apart, they wanted the scaffolding back. But I wasn't made of steel anymore. I had become glacier, cold and still and unmovable. It was almost midnight when the phone rang again. This time I picked up. Not out of forgiveness, not because I'd softened. I just didn't want the silence to say everything for me. "Morgan," my mother breathed, like she'd been holding her voice for hours. I didn't speak. She waited, then filled the space the way she always did, with explanation disguised as care. "She's not doing well," she said quietly. "Lily, she barely eats. She doesn't come downstairs. She keeps asking if you've responded." I could hear the clink of something ceramic in the background, her kitchen probably, the same blue teacup she always used when she needed to appear gentler. "I wish you were here," she added softly. I looked out the window at the lake, turned to glass under moonlight. The sky was low and endless, the kind of cold that made sound feel smaller. "I was here," I said finally, "for years. You just didn't see me." There was a pause, not defensive or quick, just still. "I didn't know you felt that way," she said, her voice thinner now. "You never said." "No one asked," I replied. She let out a breath, not quite a sigh, just the sound of realizing there's no script left that works. "I'm sorry," she said, but it came out like a question, uncertain and unfinished. I didn't answer. Somewhere in that silence she understood, because for once she didn't try to fix it. No excuses, no soft rewrites of history, just the sound of her breathing, the faint chime of a clock in the background, the quiet of two people realizing something had ended a long time ago, and this was just the echo. "Are you coming home?" she asked after a while. I looked around the cabin, the wooden floor, the wool blanket on the chair, the sound of wind against windows. Everything simple, Everything mine. No, I said gently. I think I'm finally home. We didn't say goodbye. We just let the call fade. I sat there for a while, listening to the quiet. It didn't hurt anymore. It didn't comfort me either. It just felt true. The next morning, I woke early. The cabin was still, the kind of stillness that doesn't ask anything from you. I wrapped myself in a thick sweater and stepped onto the back deck. The lake below was smooth as glass, reflecting pale gold from a rising sun. The sky stretched wide and empty, and for once, that emptiness felt like peace. I made tea, scribbled a few lines in my journal, then pulled out thick stationery I'd brought from home but never used. I wrote one letter, short and plain. No accusations, no lists of what had been done or left undone. Just this. I hope you find peace. I hope you tell the truth. I hope next time the invitation comes before the apology. Morgan. I signed it with my full name, folded it carefully, addressed it to the house I grew up in. No return address. I walked into town later that day and dropped it in a red postbox near a bakery that smelled like cardamom and ash. The man behind the counter nodded as I passed, recognizing me from mornings before. Cold today, he said. I smiled. Not as much as yesterday. On the way back, I stopped by the edge of the lagoon. A single bench faced the water. I sat for a while sipping coffee from a paper cup, watching steam rise and disappear into cold air. My phone was still in my pocket, untouched. When I returned to the cabin, I posted one last photo. A wooden chair, empty, framed by snow. Beyond it, the lake stretched out under pale sky. No caption. I knew they'd see it, not because they followed me closely, but because people always notice what's missing once it's been quiet for too long. That night, I didn't check messages, didn't scroll, didn't wonder what they were saying back home. Instead, I made soup, lit a candle, pulled a blanket across my lap, and read the same page of a book 3 times. Not because I was distracted, but because I wasn't in a hurry to leave the quiet. There was no victory in this, just clarity, no closure, just space. And for the first time in years, I didn't feel erased. I just felt free. If this story resonated with you, share your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe for more gripping stories like this one.